Welcome to Fake Presidents, a real podcast about, well, you know.
Each episode will take a deep dive into a fictional... Each episode will take... Ooh, Eric, it's a new year, and you'd think after doing this 50 some odd times, well, not 50, 25, because we go back and forth, I'd have it down by now, but I don't. Each episode will take a deep dive into a fictional American president from pop culture to see just how much fiction there really is.
I'm Eric Buckman, a former political consultant.
Yeah, see, it's contagious. It's contagious.
I'm Eric Buckman, a former political consultant turned TV writer.
And I'm Ben Oren, a former journalist, sometimes speechwriter, and all-the-time TV producer.
And today, we're going to do something a little bit different. Because we're always covering things we've seen, that doesn't leave a lot of room for one of the most fun aspects of covering politics, and that is the speculation. Talking about all the things that could potentially happen in the future, of which the most exciting things never actually happen. You always get the most boring outcomes.
It doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. It's the speculating that's fun.
What if Biden stepped down? Who's going to fill his shoes? Because, it's so common for sitting U.S. presidents to not run for re-election.
Oh, well, it's also, what if he gets rid of Kamala Harris? Because it's also quite common for the sitting president to switch VP candidates.
Oh, it happens all the time, especially when every economic indicator is going your way. It's like how in the week before the Super Bowl, you always get people speculating for the most crazy outcomes there can ever be in a game, and the result is almost always a blowout. And with, the team with the better offense, the better defense actually won? Yeah. What a shocker.
Or RFK Jr. making speculations about how everybody's out to prevent his voice from entering the fray.
Yes, his wonderfully strong
everybody's
voice.
Trying to stop. Look, he's very brave because there's not too many 70-year-old white boomer Nepo babies who actually get to have a say in the world. Yeah. So he's really making a name on the name that was given to him by somebody who is actually talented and wanted to improve the country.
Yeah, I want to enter politics now just so that my thing is not anti-inoculations. It's anti-speculations. I'll be an anti-specker. No speculation here, Ben.
No spec. I'm out to fight Big Spec.
Yeah.
I'm going to take him down.
But anyway, we don't get to speculate much, except now we do, because right before we went on our winter hiatus, 2 new trailers come out for 2 projects coming out this year that offer some, let's just say, some nice opportunities for some fake presidential showcases. Prestige fake presidential showcases.
Yeah, but before we speculate, Eric, there's some other discussions to be had about fake presidents that we have discussed in the past.
There are.
I have 2. There's 2 things I want to talk about.
Okay, well, let's knock them out first. Let's go in order. Well, before we talk about the future, let's talk about the past.
My name is Andrew Shepard, and I am the president.
First off, about the past, it's actually kind of about the future also. It's because the last movie, what was the last movie we covered, Eric?
The last movie we covered was Christmas at Holly Rock? No. Holly Lake Christmas Spectacular? No. The Christmas Massacre at Holly Lodge?
That happens eventually. That's how they get their insurance money, allegedly. But Christmas at the Holly Hotel, it was a hit. It was a huge hit, apparently, because it's got a sequel.
Yeah, how do we miss this?
A fireman for Christmas, which is not streaming yet.
I saw the trailer. I was mostly aghast that it was made.
But the guy, the filmmaker, he does trilogies. He has that dog. There's like a dog trilogy that he did that when we went through his credits last time. This guy, he likes a beginning, a middle, and an end. Not necessarily always in the movies that he makes, but he likes the idea with a trilogy, a beginning, middle, and end.
Yes. He also likes, I think, to just shoot things. I'm not going to say simultaneously because I don't even know if maybe they intended to make 2 separate movies. But let's just say this guy leaves no cut footage unused. It looks like this movie was shot concurrently with the first one. Because if you remember, one of my but one of my problems getting into that movie was the fact that in the opening scene that introduces us to ostensibly the female lead, her best friend was equally set up. Like like line for line. I couldn't tell who was this movie about and who's the friend because they were given such equal handing in their opening scene.
One could have been the cynical main character who has like the bubbly best friend who's the optimist, or it could have been about the optimist who has a cynical best friend.
It's either about the food critic who should be a chef or the advice columnist who should be actually creating romance in her life.
But she gets a chance. She's getting a chance in the sequel.
In the sequel,
for Christmas, she is getting a fireman.
A future Christmas, a different Christmas, apparently.
Different Christmas. So, Christmas a year later.
Presumably a year later. And what's interesting, the reason why I was just aghast at them making this movie is because it's about what happens when her friend comes to visit her in Michigan, in Holly, Michigan, in the same way that she fell in love with a police officer who pulls her over going 51 in a 25. Somehow her friend falls in love with a firefighter.
Yeah, the guy's best friend. It's like she's the maid of honor and he's the best man. And maybe he stops her from like arsoning, from committing arson. Maybe they have a meet cute.
That's what's crazy about the whole thing is, as we've discovered, the real life hotel it's based on not only has a history of fires, but a couple months after the movie, Christmas at Holly Lodge was filmed in Holly, Michigan in winter of, I think, 2022, the hotel burned down again.
Maybe it's actually a true crime story that we're going to see the sequel.
Well, that's just it. So, like, part of me is like, was it inspired by that there was a fire at the real life location, and so they're just
thumbing their noses at us right now. They're just being,
well, no, because obviously this was probably filmed at the same time as the other one, so it was also filmed before the actual fire.
We'll see. And look, there could still be a chance for a fake president in it because we know the main characters in it, Kathy and Matthew.
Sure.
Kathy's uncle, his uncle in quotes, is the president of the United States.
Yes.
President Tyler. Maybe he comes back he's the one who marries them.
Oh, that would be something.
Or maybe, what if the fireman is his son? Maybe the president sent him to Holly undercover to see what's going on with this arson. He is only becoming friends again with the dad who was a congressman to get to the bottom of these arsons, this insurance fraud. Maybe that's what he based his entire candidacy on, is stopping insurance fraud. Maybe it'll stream at the end of this year.
Maybe. And to all our listeners out there who watch this movie because of us, guess what? Now you have to watch a second movie because you're a completionist who can't stop at just one.
We can't. We got to see what happens.
Get off my plane.
Okay, so Fireman for Christmas. What was the other project, Ben?
For All Mankind. I keep coming back to For All Mankind. The fourth season dropped last month.
The whole run might have been completed by the time you listen to this, depending on when you listen.
Yeah, I've one or two episodes left. We're back on a different timeline. You know, in previous seasons, they had real presidents based on real politicians.
Until season 3, when they had their first entirely fictional person stepping into the presidency, because it had previously been Nixon, who was the actual president when we sent people to the moon.
Then Teddy.
Then Teddy took over in 1972.
That's Teddy, not Teddy Roosevelt. It's not like such a science fiction-y show that they bring back a reanimated Teddy. Would it be reanimated or would they have cloned him? Either way, it's not Teddy Roosevelt. It is Teddy Kennedy.
Yeah, it's obviously to get another Roosevelt in office, it has to be some sort of sci-fi experiment, not just a nephew.
Yeah.
Or cousin.
Then we had Then they had Reagan.
Wait.
Gary Hart.
Sorry, I have to share my favorite fact ever about the Roosevelt family lineage, and that is my favorite fact about the Roosevelts and their cousinhood isn't the fact that Teddy and Franklin were more closely related than you think. It's the fact that Franklin and Eleanor were more closely related than you think. So much so that, do you know what Eleanor Roosevelt's maiden name was, Ben? Eleanor Roosevelt.
Roosevelt, yes.
I just love that fact and everything it implies.
Yeah, she didn't have to go to the DMV.
Yeah.
Made it easier.
Okay. But yeah, so you had followed up by Teddy Kennedy, also a one-termer. You had Nixon come in 76, two-termer. He wraps up in 84.
No,
which
not Nixon. Reagan.
not Nixon. Reagan. What's the difference?
Exactly, yeah. One of them was a bit more photogenic.
Yeah. Okay, so Reagan
Only
comes
one of
in-
them, you could see him sweat.
He goes Reagan in 76. He gets two terms. He's actually president during the second season of the show, which takes place primarily in the early 80s. You have Gary Hart coming in 84.
Yep,
He gets two terms.
those terms.
He's out in 92, and then 92 at the beginning of this third season of
Bill Clinton's running for office.
it's Bill Clinton versus one of the astronauts from the series. And she winds up not just beating him, Bill Clinton, but winds up taking office and stepping right into the same don't ask, don't tell White
Yep.
House intern scandal that that I guess was destined to happen in the 90s, no matter who's president. Yeah, I guess it wasn't an intern, but it was definitely people having sex in the Oval Office. Except it wasn't, instead of it being the president, it was the first gentleman.
First gentleman with
Because
another gentleman.
Yes, because look, they both love each other very dearly. They're just not sexually attracted to each other, and they have an agreement. And
Yeah.
so she winds up coming out during the course of the third season, towards the end. The entire country knows we've now had a lesbian. President Wilson
I like how you
is
said
a
that.
lesbian.
Lesbian.
Well, no, they make it. She's not bisexual.
No, she is a
yeah.
lesbian.
Yeah. And when the season ended, it felt like, because the last time we see her, she's being true to herself. She's leaving the White House to go see the woman who she always wanted to be with, but couldn't be with because it would have meant sacrificing her career. But yeah, so, and the way it was shaping up is I thought they're going to say that her career's over with. She's done. Whether she runs or not, like, it's enough of a seismic shift that A, she probably couldn't be reelected, and B, she wouldn't want to be reelected. It felt like her story ended. But what do we find out at the beginning of this season?
She went again and she won.
Yeah, she ran again. She won, but the new VP, because her last VP did not like gay people.
No.
So who was her new VP?
I
George
forget.
H.W. Bush.
Oh, yes. She brought in George H.W. Bush. Yes.
George H.W. Bush, which sets up in the year 2000 a Bush v. Gore election, except it's Bush Sr. versus Al Gore, who in this world was never vice president. He was just a senator who still winds up becoming the nominee in 2000, which it's plausible.
Well,
he
he's
had
plausible.
run for president.
Tennessee, it's like everything still fits. He ran for president before.
So it's Bush v. Gore. Gore wins in this world.
Mainly because Alien Gonzalez. Alien?
Well, his name was Elian Gonzalez. The
Elian
irony
Gonzalez.
is that Alien sounds like alien.
That story still happens in this timeline. However, instead of affecting the Democratic administration, it affects a Republican administration poorly.
So we have Gore become president. We meet at least one member of the administration. I don't know who his VP is.
We do not know who his VP is.
It'd be interesting if it was Hillary, because they do mention in their recap of like the 90s that opens up the series is that after Bill Clinton lost the presidency, he and Hillary got divorced.
Yep.
And she goes off to have her own career. So that would have been interesting.
Maybe they're saving that for season 5.
Clinton, yeah. Anyway, but we do meet one member of his administration. We get to meet his new director of NASA.
He's like a Lee Iacocca. He's like a Lee Iacocca type person.
That's just it. It's a person. Okay, so it's not like you don't have to be an astronaut. In fact, I think rarely is the director of NASA an astronaut because it's an administrative position. You don't actually go into space or do space work or work out the calculations. The current one, Bill Nelson, he's a senator who did happen to go to space once back in the 80s when they were sending civilians into space as part of like an outreach program to help build awareness.
Get people psyched on space again, yeah.
Yeah. And that program, of course, came to an end when they were about to send up
Challenger, yeah.
Yeah, a school teacher, and the shuttle didn't make it to its final destination. But yeah, so he's Lee Iacocca, Jack Welch. Just name your CEO.
He was a CEO he was a CEO in the automobile industry.
Yes,
played by Daniel Stern.
But you get the sense this is a guy who he's not tied to automobiles specifically. It's not like he looks at every NASA problem saying, well, here's what we do.
Where are we
going to
put the cups? We need better cup holders. How are we expect them to go to space? We need different sized cup holders because, astronauts like to put their drinks in different sized cups. Like,
exactly. No. He gets chosen because he can get things done on time and under budget. Yeah. He can run a business like it's a business without running it out of business. And so he winds up getting the job of NASA director, which makes you wonder, would that have been his first choice? This is played by Daniel Stern, everyone knows, from Home Alone and Home Alone 2.
And Rookie of the Year.
Yes.
And the cowboy movie with Billy Crystal, Jack Palance.
The City Slickers. And the voice of the older Fred Savage in Wonder Years.
Fake Al Gore becomes president in 2000. The country doesn't have to suffer through any of his previous gaffes. Apparently those didn't happen. We never hear that he invented the internet. We don't hear anything about a lockbox. None of that classic Al Gore stuff are people aware of.
Well, here's why I don't think he could take credit for creating the internet. And that is because in this world, even though the For All Mankind universe is so much more technologically advanced in terms of space travel and green energy than our world was by the 80s and 90s and 2000s. Yeah. The one thing that we had that they still don't in the timeline of that show is the internet.
That's true. We never see anybody surfing for anything.
When they do use email,
Googles.
But actually, when they do use email, it's basically like they use some like NASA branded D-mail for digital mail system that's like very insular and it's more of an intranet than an internet, and they never say why. But the reason why I'm pretty sure it is because the internet that we know it is an extension of government programs. Starting in the 60s, 70s, 80s, through it was a DARPANet and basically it was a military program to make sure that our military bases can still communicate with each other in the event of a wide-scale nuclear strike against our country. Yeah, basically a decentralized communication system, that only gets commercialized towards the end of the Cold War for the benefit of the free world, which by the early 90s would now include Russia. So I don't think it's not a coincidence at all that the internet gets opened up at the same time that the Berlin Wall comes down. And in For All Mankind, that decision clearly never got made. The internet stays this U.S. government military thing and never gets commercialized. So anyway, that's why he can't claim to have invented it, which he never actually says in real life.
Never said that in real life.
Yeah. But what does he say, Ben?
A main plot point in season 4 is about an asteroid that contains precious metal that everybody wants to capture and mine. And it could change life on Earth. And what Al Gore says in a speech is that he discovered the asteroid.
Yes. Because his exact quote about the internet was, I took the initiative to invent the internet as a senator.
Yeah, he gave money towards the committee.
Yeah, in context, it's part of a paragraph where he's very clearly talking about passing legislation and making sure there's funding for this thing. But what gets pulled out by the Jay Lenos and Dave Lettermans of the world is the part about inventing the internet. And basically, his reputation becomes that of a boisterous, very overzealous stretcher of the truth when it comes to his own life story. Like how when he would tell people that the movie Love Story was based on
him and Tipper.
Which the author then said it's kind of true. He was because they were all friends at Harvard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there are definitely elements there. Because also wasn't Al Gore roommates with Tommy Lee Jones at Harvard? Was that a thing?
Yes, they were. They were roommates.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, so this show latches onto that, and that becomes like one of those canon events of American politics, much like Don't Ask, Don't Tell. That just have to happen. Al Gore has to take credit for something he didn't actually take credit for.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't totally fit. Because it sounds like when he says, I took the initiative to discover the asteroid, it's like, oh, he had his eye in the telescope? Like, what are they saying he's taking credit for?
They never get into it. It's like a wink, wink, get it?
Yeah.
Kind of thing for the audience.
But it becomes an embarrassing thing that winds up making Daniel Stern's job hard. So the Al Gore of it all, he's either saying things that make Daniel Stern's job harder, or Daniel Stern himself is doing things that reflect poorly on Al Gore's decision to pick him.
Yes.
Which makes it feels like an oddly pessimistic take on a Gore presidency, even though the Gore in the real world, you'd think his ideals would line up very well with the ideals of for all mankind, at least the America for all mankind in this decade. And that's made all the more interesting by the fact that this is probably the first time that a fake president in a TV show sits on the board of directors of the company that made it. Al Gore is on the Apple board.
Yeah, maybe he had it in his contract to appear. There's like a line in that. He's like, if you happen to have a show that takes place in the early 2000s, you got to make me president.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, okay, that's like a weird thing to request, but sure, we'll put it in if it gets the deal done. And then they start getting the scripts for season 4 of For All Mankind, and Tim Cook, because Tim Cook reads every script.
Yeah.
He calls the showrunners. He's like, guys, I usually don't give these kinds of notes, but you're going to have to change the president to Al Gore.
Well, you joke, but okay, so Al Gore, he's been on the board since like 2002, early 2000s, which is pretty soon after losing the presidency. Yeah. So there is a world where he is taking this board position back when Apple was coming out with the iPod, and like that could be an actual clause in there.
Yeah.
It's like, just so you know, if you ever one day produce scripted content that acknowledges who won in 2000s, you have to set the record straight.
You have to say, it's me. I will be vindicated. Justice for Gore.
Although that said, he actually recently, this is pretty fresh news as we record this, announced that he's stepping down from the board, which you might think, is it because of the way he was treated in the show? No, apparently they have a rule that once you reach the age of 75, you're not eligible for re-election to the board, basically. Okay. So it's a law that corporate America has that, say, Congress
maybe should look into it.
Yeah. So he's too old to be on the board of directors of Apple, but not too
bored. He can run. Yeah, he could run again for the Senate.
Yeah, but how would somebody who already lost the presidency ever want to run again?
Why would they ever put themselves in that position?
How dare you come into this office and bark at me like some little junkyard dog? I am the President of the United States.
Which takes us into our main topic.
Speculation.
We get to speculate based off of just a couple of trailers that were released in December on some projects, one a movie, one a TV series, coming up this year. And which would you like to talk about first, Ben?
I think The Regime comes out first, so let's talk about that. The Regime for Max.
Which in the trailer, they do call it an HBO original. So even though it'll be on Max, it's from the HBO wing of Max that brought us Succession and The Sopranos and First and 10 in Your Face and
A Dream On.
Arliss.
From the Mind of a Married Man.
Yeah. So
these are all winners.
Going way back.
Taxi Cab Confessions.
Real Sex.
1 through 73.
Inside the NFL.
Oh, that was a good fictional show. I loved Inside the NFL.
Yeah, so it's from that company.
But also it has the writers are from Succession.
There is some overlap, at least enough overlap.
Will Tracy and Frank Rich is more of a producer, I'm sure, on it because he's like the New York Times guy for forever. But Will Tracy, who wrote on Succession, his credits are fucking insane. He's young. His credits are John Oliver, The Menu, that movie that came out last year, which I enjoyed, and Succession. What a start.
It reminds me of like when I first saw the name Cord Jefferson keep popping up. And I'm like, at first I saw it in The Good Place. Yeah. And like Watchmen.
Now American Fiction. Like some people just like come out like fucking swinging.
Yeah. Good agent? No, good writer.
Good writer.
Yeah. Also goes to show how far you can coast on one good credit. I'm not to say they're coasting, but like if your first job out the gate is something recognizable people have watched, it helps so much.
but his first credit is also if it's a late night show essentially doing John Oliver's show. You're just viewed as a joke person. But he goes from that writing The Menu and Succession where it's like I'm also story.
Oh yeah, no,
I know story, but not like A, B, and C story, but like deep themes about the human condition. Yeah. Oh my god, that's right, right on, Will Tracy.
No, I know plenty of Daily Show writers, people who were there like peak Daily Show. Jon Stewart, it was the show to watch every night, especially if you're in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And these are people who can't get their scripted stuff going. It's just like...
They see you as one thing. Anyway, this is starring Kate Winslet, and she's like the despotic chancellor of some like new European nation. You know, she has a British accent, but we see a palace nestled between snow-capped mountains.
Is it new nation or just a fictional nation that's been around for hundreds of years?
I don't know. It seems like it could be a new nation. It seems like shit went down, and she has united Europe in a way. She united like the rightward lean of Europe into a new country or federation.
Yeah, she's definitely an autocratic leader.
We see her behind. She's like protected by bulletproof glass whenever she talks directly to the people. We hear her say, "Since I became your chancellor, we have grown considerably as a country. It is time to show America and the world precisely what we are worth."
And that is why we think we might be covering it, because how do you do a TV series about a fictional head of state who's really worried about their relations with America without getting into the American side of that equation?
Yeah, and according to Wikipedia, and as we all know, Wikipedia is always correct about everything, Martha Plimpton is playing the U.S. Secretary of State, and we actually see her in a scene with American flags behind her. But she's also kind of dressed like in like that female dystopian military look.
Yeah.
So who knows what America's going to be like?
Well, let's speculate. Like I see it going one of two ways. Either this is a series because it's all about the dysfunction of this regime, or maybe not dysfunction, maybe just how it functions. And the idea is because, succession style storyline where she's trying to achieve something greater than her own. And if she holds U.S. recognition as this great pedestal for her to get to one day, does that mean that the U.S. in this world is actually some sort of ideal still to be aspired to? And maybe we never meet the president because the idea is, as much as Kate Winslet wants to, it's always outside of her grasp? Or is it the opposite? In the dysfunctions of this country is both a metaphor for where America is headed, as well as a canary in the coal mine for the whole world, where the whole world's headed. And so the dysfunction we're seeing, they parallel what's going on in other countries, namely America. And if we do meet that president, it'll be a very dysfunctional wannabe despot type too, as well.
Yeah, I guess the question is: does there always have to be does the other side of the coin need to be an opposite, or can it also be a mirror? Yes,
which, like in Succession, like obviously this is a whole different creative show. Which even though there is some overlap in people behind the scenes, it has its own themes. It's going to have its own plotting. But if we do use Succession as a guidepost, that's a show where by the end of its fourth season, it became very clear that everyone is equally fucked up in remarkably similar ways.
But with this, with Kate Winslet's character, she comes across as quite strong. She's more of a Logan Roy than like one of the children.
The other interesting thing about just the little tiny bits we bet, especially in terms of her character, I got strong Kari Lake vibes from her.
Well, she's better than Kari Lake because Kari Lake appears like fucking unhinged, and there's a sense of control that Kate Winslet's chancellor has over everything.
Well, but her unhingedness was kind of triggered when she started to lose. Like I feel like from the moment that she was an on-air talent to the moment that she realized she was not going to win, she was pretty good at keeping herself together to keep playing the role of the trusted voice of the people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until she realized that the system was not designed to elect people like her, or at least the voters of Arizona were not inclined to vote for someone like her, that she realized that her only choice now is to crib from a different playbook where maybe votes don't matter anymore and you can achieve power through other means, which I think lines up to Chancellor Winslet in the regime. But the other thing with the regime, to me, I see her having, if not a news background, a theatrical background. There's parts of that trailer where she's clearly in theatrical mode, performing. In fact, she seems to always be in competition for attention with other people, including kids. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. The big question to me is going to be like, what role does America play, and how is America portrayed, and
who's going to be the president? Because I think for a show like this, coming from the pedigree that it has, not just behind the camera, but also with Kate Winslet being the lead, and it being on HBO, being on Max. You're gonna go. They're gonna go for a big fucking like awesome name if there's an actual U.S. president,
or somebody who is like really big in the theater scene. Maybe even somebody who's not even American, but who has so much gravitas, or at least someone who's just so damn good that even if you haven't heard of them before, they just own the role, and you're like, wow, this is another HBO discovery.
They're gonna get Leonardo DiCaprio.
You think?
I think that would be fucking cool.
Yeah, what's weird is, I mean, he's more than aged up for the role.
Yeah.
Although he still has this, even at age 50, has this boyishness about him that makes him feel like a young president. It's like when
he could do that. What we saw in Don't Look Up, he could handle that level of comedy.
And Killers of the Flower Moon, he's hilarious. So, yeah, where are you leaning towards the regime? Speculate, Ben. Tell me, where do you think they're going to go with the presidency?
I think we're going to get a cowboy kind of president, a populist on the other side. But I think the question, of course, is why is it time for them to show America what they're worth? What else is going on in this world? What is the fight over? We're not sharing borders in this world. So what is it? What influence do they want and need? And that they don't give you any of that in the trailer.
But isn't that exactly what a country that has nothing to show for its worth would want to, in their mind, constantly be insecure about? Is we have to show them what we're worth. It's like, you don't have anything.
It doesn't look like it's just like a tiny state, silly country that you could make up. Like Peter Sellers could come up with like a ridiculous name for it in the 60s and
like
have a silly accent to go along with it. It's not a random stand country. But I think the American president will probably be some sort of, I hope not a full-on Godot style character, but will weigh large.
Right.
And I'm excited to see who it may be.
And when we cover it, I can already speculate what our episode title will be. The Chancellor of Easttown.
How? Because I'm the goddamn president of the United States of America.
So that leaves one other project that people have been begging us to talk about a little bit because it's seemingly 100% up our alley.
Because there's no speculation. There is an American president in this movie.
Yes. And it's a prestige movie, too.
When you say prestige, you have to say it like in the movie. Prestige.
The Prestige. But no, it's A24, which brings us highbrow genre entertainment. And by genre, usually it's the horror genre.
There's a Canadian production company that does highbrow Canadian films. You know what it's called?
No.
A24.
Hey. Sorry. Not that one.
Anyway, yes. A24, they make prestige films, Oscar-nominated films.
They branched out in the TV. I think they produced Beef, which it's getting a lot of attention this award season, or at least on the TV side of things. The writer-director of this project is Alex Garland, who, before writing and directing movies like Annihilation and Ex Machina.
I love Ex Machina.
Like sci-fi movies that are heavy on theme, like they're about something.
Yeah. Ex Machina is all about sex robots.
But before that, Alex Garland, he was a frequent collaborator with Danny Boyle. He did the zombie movies, the 28
Days Later, 28 Weeks Later.
And I think they're now working back together again on 28 Years Later.
As a trilogy, I don't know whether it'll be 28 Years Later Part 1. Maybe it'll be 28 Years Later, comma, 28 Days Later, 28 Years Later, comma, or 28 Weeks Later. Then to wrap it all up, it'll be 28 Years Later, comma, 28 years later. You're like, why didn't they just call it 56 years later? And they're like, you're going to have to wait and find out. And I'm like, okay, you got me again.
See,
Danny,
to me, it's so expected. Why couldn't
Alex.
they do the prequel? Just go 28 days earlier.
And then it's just, they do like 28 years earlier, and it's just Saturday Night Fever. Because that happened 28 years ago.
Yeah, no zombies yet.
Yeah,
Like,
no zombies. I just want to dance. Why you got to hit my hair? And they're like... You're just remaking Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah,
I'm on to you guys.
But yeah, so Alex Garland always has something to say. The question is, what is he trying to say here, Ben?
In his new movie, Civil War.
Yes, not to be confused with Captain America Civil War, which I was really hoping this was more tied into because I love that movie.
I thought maybe this was just that movie, but they took out all of the Captain America scenes.
Oh, they kept just the Spider-Man and Iron Man and Black Panther?
Yeah. I watched that movie. So, Civil War, this is the one-liner that I saw about this movie. There's a race to the White House in a near-future America balanced on the razor's edge.
You just described the 2024 election.
Yeah.
A race to the White House.
I think that's what CNN is putting, like, flashing on the screen every time they talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, well, the trailer, though, look, doesn't try to hide what it's about, is there's outright violence, military vehicles, military factions on U.S. soil fighting amongst each other as a group of what appear to be, first I thought a family, but I guess they're just journalists who have become a makeshift family.
They become a makeshift
their way across the country.
I'm sure that they feel like they're a family by the end. It's like a road trip. It's like kind of like National Lampoon's Vacation.
Yeah,
except there's a civil war going on.
Although people online, I think, were kind of taken aback by just how in your face it is. Like, you know, when you start to see monuments in Washington being destroyed by military jets with American flags on them.
Yep.
You know, it's definitely it's one of the more eye-catching things in a trailer I've seen in a long time. Makes you realize just how little we see of that. Like, it's like when the trailer for Independence Day first came out, and you see the White House blow up. Like, I've never seen that. Like, that's what got people into the seats. That, you know, we've talked about it, and so this definitely had that kind of effect. Not as strong, because it's not like we haven't seen destruction in the U.S. Capitol before.
Some monuments recently, we've seen some destruction.
Yeah,
not just vandalism.
But it definitely felt it was punching above its belt budget-wise. Like, if you told me this was a $300 million movie, and we just saw, like, the first
It's going to be an IMAX.
tease.
They're going to release it on IMAX screens.
Yeah, like the action sequences didn't feel that out of place from, like, you know, I won't say MCU movie, but let's just say a DC extended universe movie. Like,
You know,
if Superman and Batman showed up in this trailer, it would not seem out of place.
And I think what people are also talking about is the cast for this movie.
Yes.
Because it's not necessarily what you would expect from an A24 movie or from an Alex Garland movie or from a movie about the Civil War in America.
Yeah, not nearly as many Brits as you usually get in an Alex Garland movie.
Kristen Dunst is the lead. Is it her husband or just they're together? Jesse Plemons is in the movie. Well, he is an A24 kind of guy.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. You meant in real life they're together. I thought because in the movie they are not a couple.
Who knows? Maybe we don't know what happens at the end. Maybe they become a couple. They have that in their contracts too. If we're in a movie together, we don't always have to be together at the beginning, but by the end, we have to clearly be in love because you cannot contain this magnetism and attraction that we have because people are going to be talking about it anyway.
So when Jesse Plemons is holding the gun up to these journalists, ask them what kind of Americans they are, what he means is, are you the kind that's into a guy like me?
Yeah. The internet's down. I'm not on Hinge anymore. Yeah. Do you like cats or dogs? And of course, the main, I think, kind of surprise, maybe not a surprise anymore because he's been taking different kinds of roles over the past couple of years, but the president is played by Nick Offerman.
Yes. Who I remember when I first mentioned, like, I first heard that there's going to be a president in the Mission Impossible universe because I heard a podcast interview with Nick Offerman because apparently he's going to be in the next Mission Impossible movie, which they already filmed most of, in scenes with the fake president. And he did mention that. And when I first mentioned on this podcast, Ben, you're not going to believe it. The next Mission Impossible movie has a fake president in it. And you said, who? And I started off by saying the words Nick Offerman. Before you let me finish, Nick Offerman was on a podcast and said it. You were like, oh my God, Nick Offerman's be the president? Like, you lit up. You could not wait to see what a president Nick Offerman would look like. And I felt so bad having to inform you that, no, he's not the president.
He's not the president.
But then this
maybe Alex Garland probably listened to the podcast. He's like, you know what? I'm going to do Ben a fave.
I'm gonna guess.
He picks up the old internet that exists in this world, and he shot off little emails to N. Offerman 1971 at hotmail.com. I'm sorry, did I just doxed Nick Offerman?
Yeah, I don't think it's possible. I don't know if you can dox him because I doubt he has an email address or a cell phone.
Yeah, you have to craft
out of wood.
a small wooden boat. Place a note in it.
It's like a Minority Report. You have to engrave your message into a wooden marble that can't be faked. Anyway, he plays the president. It's not mentioned in the trailer at all, but one of the write-ups, it mentioned that Nick Offerman's playing a third term.
A third term,
US.
yes.
That does get mentioned. So either someone got that wrong and it's been repeated many times since, or that's actual plot point.
Yeah, he's much like Roosevelt, I guess.
Maybe that's the issue. Maybe he is a Roosevelt. We don't know his name.
We don't know. He's the reanimated. If somebody was like, Nick Offerman's playing Teddy Roosevelt, I'd be like, yes, of course Nick Offerman's playing Teddy Roosevelt. And then if they were like, you didn't let me finish. Nick Offerman is playing Teddy Roosevelt in Civil War. I'm like, okay, I'm still in. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah. It's funny.
And I know that it wasn't Teddy who had 3 terms, but still, a Roosevelt.
He tried to have multiple bites of that apple. Like he was one of those presidents who actually, even though
Was he a bull moose?
Well, he tried to run again, and I have to look at the details, but like there was some issue where like he didn't wind up his party's nominee, and so winds up scoring off against the Republican. Opens the door for Woodrow Wilson, I believe.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, write in. Tell me I'm wrong. Do it. I dare you.
There's no other way for us to find out other than you guys writing in to us.
Yes. No, what was interesting about the Teddy Roosevelt thing, just on Hollywood, is you just know because he's famous for being like the sportsman president, the hunter and boxer and fighter who, and the Rough Riders going down to Cuba. Yeah, that you just know that if you're casting that movie today, they're going to want to hire Reacher? Get like that guy.
No, the list would be stupid. They'd be like, do you think Timothy Chalamet could play Teddy Roosevelt? Do you think
I'm thinking they lean into the muscle thing, not realizing that in truth, back then, Nick Offerman was like peak male physical fitness. Like that's what Teddy Roosevelt probably really looked like. I say probably. Like, no, we know he looked like that.
No, we know what he looked like. We know what he looked like.
Cameras were around back then. Yeah. Well, we don't know the president's name. We don't know the president's party. We're pretty sure it's a third termer. We know there's a Western coalition, but if you look at frame by frame of the trailer, the Western coalition seems to just be California and Texas working together.
It was interesting. And is that because we see a U.S. flag with only 2 stars on it? So is that the flag of the Western coalition?
Or is that what's left of America at some point? Oh, I got to say, that 2-star flag looks pretty sweet.
I would put that on the back of my pickup truck.
Yeah, which is the other fear people have of this movie, because it is like the fever dream of some of the worst people in America right now, that there is some fear that it could have like a Fight Club effect, where people kind of miss the point.
Miss the point, yeah.
Although that said, I saw Fight Club when it first came out, and I don't know if the point was made all that clear by 1999 standards. But yes, Civil War, it's got a very blunt title that is about what it is.
It is. I mean, he says some very blunt things in it. We hear the president say, the uprising will be dealt with swiftly. We hear him say he just gives a pledge of allegiance. It's very dramatic that he gives a pledge of allegiance.
But he stresses the word indivisible.
Indivisible. We also see, I think we see him dragged out of the Oval Office.
We see somebody dragged
out of the Oval Office.
From underneath the Resolute desk. So we saw the body double for somebody dragged. There were these.
We also know that he used airstrikes on Americans.
Yeah.
He's not fucking around, President Nick Offerman / reanimated Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, which, look, in an Alex Garland scripted sci-fi series, reanimating old presidents only to have things go awry, that's right up there.
Maybe it's a straight-up sequel to Ex Machina, and it's like the sex robots are fighting. What side would the sex robots fight on? I don't know. That's also why I'm going to check out Civil War.
That was the whole point of that movie, is if you let this sex robot out, it is so good at manipulating men that a war of some kind is inevitable over this robot.
And look, those were only female sex robots. If I were to make a male sex robot, you know who it would look like, Eric?
Nick Offerman.
Nick Offerman. And I think with that, we've been fake presidents.
Oh,
Anything
yeah.
else you want to talk about?
Anything else about 2024? No, I just want the audience to tell us. Like, is there stuff you're looking forward this year that we definitely need to cover? Also, if you have any ideas on what to do for President's Day, that's usually when we go off topic and talk about stuff that does not have a president in it, but is fake president adjacent. So let us know. Give us your ideas. You can email us at fakepresidents@gmail.com. You can find us on all the social medias. Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky.
Well, the theme music was by Johnny Sadoff, our artwork by Ann Hacker. Please rate us, review us, subscribe to us. I think there's going to be other movies this year that have fake presidents.
Well, I know
what
what we're not going to get is a delayed Mission Impossible.
No, that's not going to happen this year. That's been pushed to 2025.
Yeah, that's been pushed. So whoever the
do you
fake
think like
president
Godzilla
is,
times Kong? Is it Godzilla and Kong?
Godzilla X Kong?
Times Kong?
I do know what what actually supplanted For All Mankind is my new favorite Apple TV Plus TV series.
That monster movie.
Yeah, Monarch.
Monster TV show, Monarch.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, no fake president.
No fake president. And yeah, so thanks, guys.
This has been Fake Presidents.
Bye.
Bye.
Will Ghostbusters Frozen Empire have a fake president? They've already talked to the mayor in the original movie of Ghostbusters. Are they finally going to get to talk to the president?
Yeah, that would be something. I feel like they had their chance in the first movie, which was clearly set not in New York. Like I feel like that was their chance to maybe venture to DC, but now they're back in New York. They're probably going to stay there unless the president is visiting, or maybe they have to use. Or maybe a cool plot point revolves around, speaking of Roosevelt's, one of Franklin Roosevelt's secret subway tunnels underneath Manhattan.
Because Franklin Roosevelt had a secret subway tunnel because the wheels of his chair could go right onto the track.
Yeah, they're right on it. Yeah.
It was electrified. He'd go on and be like, "Zzz." They're like, how are we going to beat traffic? We're stuck here. He's like, just wheel me down there. Put me on the tracks.
He had his own train.
He's just like, hop on, Eleanor. We're out of here.
Yeah.